Well, I have to tell you, this is a very special honor for me tonight. I grew up in Southern California, but my parents sent me east to find the West here in Arizona. And for all of us in Arizona who love this state and love our history, there's one man that I know who has dedicated himself through most of his life to inspiring a love of our state and a love of our history and a love of our country. That man is with us tonight. His name is Marshall Trimble. He is our Western Heritage Center Award winner for his lifetime of dedication to our state's history. But before I bring Marshall up here, I just need to say a few words. As I thought about this, I realized how fortunate I am to be here tonight to present him with this award. Marshall has been a mentor to me, a friend to me for over 30 years, close friend of my late father's. And I've known Marshall personally since we started working together at Arizona Highways in the early 1990s. But as a graduate student at Arizona State University, you were aware of Marshall Trimble's presence in this state because he was on the road maybe more than anyone else before him, other than Barry Goldwater and Charlotte Hall, spreading the good news about this state. I truly believe no one before or since Charlotte Hall has done more to promote and popularize our history and our heritage in Arizona. From his adopted hometown of Ash Fork to his classroom at Scottsdale Community College, and before that, the classroom at Coronado High. From the stage to the State House, from campfire circles to national television, he is our friend, and he is Arizona's greatest troubadour. Marshall has brought joy to thousands of students across the state through story and song, and I'm sure many exams. He has shared that love with more people through his history of Arizona than any other chronicle of our state. There's many who tried to write State of Arizona, write our history before and after. But if you want to grab a great book, pick up Marshall's book on Arizona. It may lead you to read a lot more, but you read Marshall's History of Arizona, you've started well. Other than his good friend Dolan Ellis, the official troubadour of the state, I don't think anyone has entertained more people with Western song and cowboy poetry about Arizona than Marshall. And last but not least, no one has told more tall tales, true and false, about his hometown of Ash Fork than Marshall Trimble. Marshall, will you come forward, please? I'd like to honor you tonight. Marshall, I'm going to give you the microphone.
Thank you, Stuart. To quote one of my old baseball heroes, Yogi Berra, I want to thank you all for making this night possible. That was supposed to be funny, but it's been a wild ride that a kid from Ash Fork never dreamed of. I couldn't even get elected to office in high school, but anyway, I want to ask you first, how many of you grew up with a family dog? I figured just about everybody did. There's a lot you can learn from that. I hope this might be the most important thing I tell you tonight, but a family dog. Your biggest hope ought to be the kind of person that your dog already thinks you are. We give dogs the time we can spare and the space we can spare and the love that we can spare. And in return, our dog gives us their all. Unconditional love. That may be the best deal that mankind ever had. And if you don't believe me, I'll put this test to you. Get your spouse and lift the trunk of your car and put her in the back. And then pick up the dog and throw him in the back and drive up Senator Highway for about 30 minutes. And then open the trunk and see what you're going to, glad to meet you. Yep. I want to talk a little bit about small towns because my heart is still in a small town. When I was 8 years old, we moved from a farm in Lehigh, and before that, I was born on a farm in Tempe. In fact, Tempe claims I'm from Mesa, and Mesa claims I'm from Tempe. But we got in an old car and drove up Black Canyon Highway in 1947. I was 8 years old, and we arrived in Ash Fork, and those old steam locomotives were making a lot of noise that night, and I thought, I'll never sleep again. And a year or two later, went back to the farm, and I couldn't sleep. It was too quiet. But I just, I never knew, I never dreamed at the time, but Ash Fork would play such a role in my whole life to this day. I love small towns. You always know you're in a small town because everybody knows whose checks are good and whose husbands are bad. And your phone book only has one page. I might add, Ash Fork was one of the smallest of the small towns. We have about 160 towns in Arizona, but that's where Ash Fork. So I just wanted to take a little time and tell you some things about Ash Fork. And other things about a small town you can always tell. Our sister city was a Taco Bell in Costa Rica. The biggest business in the town was a 300-pound Avon lady. Yeah. And it was a friendly town too. It was a friendly town. You call a wrong number on a phone, and you wind up talking to somebody for 30 minutes anyway. And it was so friendly that even the wanted posters of the outlaws down at the post office were all smiling. It was our biggest outlaw or crook in the town was a handyman named Pinky Graveldinger. And Pinky was a terrible crook. He didn't even know how to be a crook. He'd steal a car and keep making the payments on it. He once was caught and arrested for taking up a collection for the widow of the unknown soldier. I mean, he's a piece of work. And the Depression, the Great Depression, when we arrived in 1947, the Great Depression was still alive and well in Arizona. And in Ash Fork, we didn't think about it at all. We thought we were living very well until we started receiving care packages from Bangladesh. And, well, people used to steal trash from their neighbors just to have something to put out on garbage collection day. Yeah. But we lived in this little small trailer, a 2-room trailer with no plumbing. And we were crowded. 5 of us were crowded, my brothers and mom and dad. We were crowded in this little 2-room trailer house. And my brothers and I had to sleep in the same bed. I never slept alone till I got married. We had a problem with water in Ash Fork too, and that is we didn't have any. The well wasn't dug there until the 1970s, but in those days, Del Rio Springs is where we got all of our water. A tanker car train drove up every day and brought water to the town. The only lawn in the whole town was at the Harvey house. We'd sneak in there and play football, tackle football with no pads. We were tough. But it was the what was I going to say? Oh, they used to say that alcohol was cheaper than wine in Ash Fork. And in 1948, during the presidential election, the county recorder from here in Prescott called our magistrate, the old Judge Slammin in the dime store, and wanted to know how many voters did we have in Ash Fork, broken down by sex. And with a straight face, he replied, "None that I know of. Our main problem in this town is alcohol." So, what a town. I mentioned water well just now, and there was a very few flush toilets in the town, and we had an outhouse. Of course, we lived in a trailer house with no plumbing, so we shared an outhouse with 2 other trailers. And I remember coming home from school one day, and I come upon the outhouse, and I don't know what came over me, but I ran over there and I tipped it over, and then I ran into the trailer house. And a few minutes later, my dad came in, and he said, "Who did it? Who did it?" And he was looking straight at me. So I got this noble feeling, and I said, "Father, I cannot tell a lie." I was doing my best Washington Irving. I cut down the cherry tree. And his father didn't give him a whipping, because that was the story we were told in school. He said, "George, since you told the truth, you will not get a whipping." Well, my dad probably already, when I said the same thing, I said, "I cannot tell a lie. I tipped over the outhouse." And he reached for his razor strop. And I said, wait a minute, Daddy. George Washington cut down the cherry tree. And his father asked him, "George, did you cut down that cherry tree?" And he said, "Father, I cannot tell a lie. I cut down the cherry tree." And he didn't get a whipping. And my dad looked at me and said, "George Washington's dad wasn't sitting in the cherry tree when it happened." Well, in grade school, I had already attended 6 schools by the time I was in the 4th grade. We moved a lot when Dad first hired out for the Santa Fe Railroad, and I just was going from school to school. And so by the time we arrived in Ash Fork, I was, in fact, the first 3 years, the three happiest years of my life were spent in the 4th grade in Ash Fork. They gave me tenure. And then I brought a report card home one day, and it had 4 F's and 1 D on it. And my dad looked at it and he said, "Marshall, I think you're spending too much time on one class." Well, I had a real problem with math. And one day, Miss Pringle, my 4th grade teacher, had me stand up in front of the class, and she said, "Marshall, if you had $15.18 in one pocket and $16 in 22 pockets, what would you have?" And I said, "Somebody else's pants on." I spent another year in the 4th grade. Then I got to high school, and Ash Fork was one of the smallest high schools in Arizona, and we used to have to play Kingman and Flagstaff and even Prescott once in a while in baseball, and it was we were always getting beat. We got beat so often that our cheerleaders were trained in crisis control. So we had a I keep forgetting what I was going to say next, but anyway, I remember what it was now. We lost to Kingman one time, 99-30. And afterwards, a reporter came up to our coach and he said, "Coach, what do you think about your team's execution today?" He said, "I think that would be a darn good idea." So we had fun. Did we have fun traveling all over all these little towns, and they were all unique, no difference. They were just none were alike. We didn't have any franchise stuff. Oh, I think Flagstaff had a Dairy Queen, but everything else was you could drop me off blindfolded anywhere in northern Arizona, and I'd get a second to look around, and I could tell you what town I was in. And like I say, we got defeated in most of those towns in sports, but we loved it. We had a great time. And then the other thing about small towns and everything, or actually any school, is that you never forget your first girlfriend. And my first girlfriend was Crystal Latouche, there in Ash Fork. She was not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but nature had compensated her in other ways. 4 years, she was named Student Body. And in her senior year, they retired her sweater. Well, we went steady. It was the first and only steady girlfriend I think I had. And to celebrate, we were going to drive up Ash Fork Hill to Williams and have a Coke at Old Smoky's. And we were driving up in my old 46 Ford convertible, and reached over and I put my hand on her knee, and we went a little further, and she said, "Marshall, we're going steady now. You can go further." So I drove on to Flagstaff. Well, we moved away my senior year. I cut down the class size by 10%. There were 10 in the senior class. And I enrolled in West Phoenix High School, where there were 630 seniors. So I went from being in the top 10 of my senior class to 329th. But somehow or other I went to college. I think just because my friends did. A bunch of the ball players I ran around with we went on to college, Phoenix College. It was just a little 2-year college, but it was still going to college. The railroaders were also pleased because my dad was a popular guy with the Santa Fe, an old engineer by now, and he said his nickname was Happy, and he said, "Happy, here Marshall's going to college now." And Dad said, "Yeah, he's the first kid in our family, first one in our family to ever go to college." And one of them said, "What's he going to be when he gets out?" And Dad said, "He's going to be 35 or 40 the way he's going." Well, I want to thank you. And this is such a special award to me. I've been to the Western Heritage Museum, and I just, it's just been a real special treat. And Stuart and I work with True West Magazine, and we have a great time there telling stories about the West. And but I love Prescott and always have. And we would have moved here after we left Ash Fork, except the railroad bypassed Ash Fork, Prescott too, as you know. And so I had to move back. I had to move to Phoenix, and I've regretted it ever since. But but anyway, thank you again. And
Thank you, Marshall.
pick this up.